Today I want to show you a trick which is a game changer for making embossed splatter, so stay tuned! Hi everyone, it's Asia Marke here, Lemon Creation. Welcome to my mixed media channel. I'm gonna be working today with my new set of rice papers, which are just currently in the shop. And this is a grey collection. So instead of stamping or stenciling, today it's gonna be all about the rice papers. I'm gonna be also using leftover cardstock, and this trick I am gonna tell you about in a while. And it's kind of a project almost on the budget. Okay, the rice paper you have to buy, and basically everything which I'm using you have to buy at some point, but it's quite a easy project if it comes to the budget. Easy and not very expensive. So what I'm doing is I have this leftover cardstock. When I'm cutting my papers, I usually keep the leftovers if they are quite big. They are much smaller than ATC card. So they are cut in the form of rectangle because I usually have this long strip of paper which is a leftover of some or other project of mine, and I cut them into form of these rectangles, and I'm putting them onto the rice paper. There is a reason why I'm putting them upside down, because, you know, I wanted to first put them and then I wanted to tear them from the rice paper, so like that I have these distressed edges. So that's what I'm doing right now. Once they are dry, they are stuck to the glue, but the rest of it you can actually tear, and so the part which is stuck to the glue rests on the paper or stays on the paper, and the rest you can remove with your fingers. That gives me this grunge distressed effect, which I love so much. And it's quite easy to do. Another way of doing it is to actually dump your brush in the water and just trace the borders from the rice paper with the damp brush. Like that the rice paper gets damp, and then you can tear it quite easily and quite nicely to your liking. But I like this effect of surprise, so, you know, as you've seen me, I put the glue on the papers a little bit haphazardly. And so now I have this surprise because I don't know how they actually stuck to the paper. And I had this last piece of paper. I got some transfer on my palette knife with I don't know what. I think, I don't know, some of the paints. So you've seen a little bit of black glue there, but it doesn't really matter to my distressed ATCs anyway. And so I managed to use the sixth rectangle with the leftovers from this paper. So this is super cool. But I also didn't like the quite empty spaces on some of the cards, so that's why I'm adding here bits of pieces of leftover paper also. And like that I have this set of really nice grungy looking papers. And so, because they are so much smaller, I'm gonna frame them with the other colored cardstock, which you're gonna see just at the end. But because at this point I was not sure actually how I'm gonna proceed with the focal points, I decided to add a layer of matte gel to the surface of the paper. This is not a must. You can do it, especially if you are planning on adding some paints or some water-soluble mediums to it. So like that it will protect the paper. And because if you, for example, spray paint directly onto the rice paper, the rice paper is gonna change the color, and it's not gonna look very nice, I think. At least to me it doesn't look very nice, because the rice paper absorbs the water and the colors, and it makes a whole big stain out of it. So that's why I added this layer, but this is not a must if you don't need to add any water-based mediums later on. And I decided to also add a little bit of black to the edges because, as you can see, the white cards are quite striking in comparison to the rice paper. So this black will kind of give a more coherent look to it. And so guys, this is the things I have to emboss. I have the Zig Emboss pen, which I actually don't like. It has the chisel tips on both ends and I don't like. I prefer the ones from Ranger. And the ink pad, which is super cool for embossing. And if you want to do the splatter, as I show you, you usually have to use some kind of stamp with a splatter. So your options are limited. But I decided to try today a glycerin because I know that if your ink pad for embossing is dried out, you can add some glycerin to it and it will rework almost perfectly. And if you know me and my channel, you know that sometimes I do, or quite often I do splatter with water. The big problem when splattering with water is that the powder quite easily can fly off from the paper. So you have to heat it very, very slightly at the very beginning. So today I decided to experiment a little. I put few drops of glycerin to my palette thingy and a little bit of water. The first time I put the water, there was some kind of a color which was not visible, but I guess there was some powder which just got inside this palette, and so I removed it and I add again a little bit of water. The proportion, those are completely mine proportions. I took them just like I made them just like that. So basically, it's 1 part of water, 1 part of glycerin. But I'm thinking that if you add a little bit of glycerin, it may be a little bit harder to make a splatter, but it will hold to the surface. The embossing powder will hold to the surface a little bit better. So it's for you to experiment. I'm gonna re-experiment with that once again. I'm sure of it, but I find it so much nicer than the water. And when glycerin costs you something around from $5 to $9, it actually can last you for years, which you cannot say about the embossing pad. So it's a really good and cheap investment. And for the first card, for all the cards, I decided to use this Shabby embossing powder, but I realized it has too much of golden particles in it and I didn't like it. So I turned I turned 2 Lindys and I used the purely white embossing powder from Lindy's. So as you can see, it's maybe a little bit harder to see on the camera, but the embossing powder sticks quite nicely to the surface. But I'm thinking the best way is to actually splatter and emboss straight away. I waited too long, and I think the first splatter dried a little bit, so that's why I decided to come back to the first cards and add a little bit more of the splatter and a little bit of embossing powder, as you can see right here. But other than that, I am really happy with this experiment because, as I told you, I used to splatter with water for years. But the splatter with water is quite tricky, and usually around 1/3 or even half of the splatter just disappears because the powder flies off. The water is not as sticky, of course, as glycerin. You can also use for a splatter like that some kind of like liquid glue, which is used, for example, for a golden foil. But if you don't have a the liquid glue, you can use the glycerin, which is available to everyone. So it's a really nice way to and cheap way to do your embossing. As you can see, sometimes instead of really nice splatter, I'm making some kind of lines, but I liked it. I like the lines. I could have tried to use my brush and remove some of the lines. But I thought that it adds a little bit of different feel, and so I left it like that. And these are the small sentences I took from the old pages I have from old books, and they are kind of taken out of context. They are not full sentences, they are just parts, which kind of, to me, sounds poetic. I used to like poetry, or I used to read poetry a lot when I was young. Now I still love it, but I don't really have that much time to read it. But I like these small excerpts from books or poetry. And so I added them with the stapler because, as you can see, it's quite a industrial feel, grungy feel type of cards. So I thought a stapler will be just a great option. And I decided to add 2 bags to it. I think you called it also matte layer. And because the cards are so much smaller than the ATC size, I needed to kind of add a little bit of surface, I'd say, to it. So I decided to go first with the craft paper, which works very well with the coloring of the rice paper. And I distressed the edges with my scissors. I still, after so many years, didn't manage to get myself this distress tool from Tim Holtz. I'm always very, when I see somebody using it, I'm always so curious about it. But I always have some other things to buy which are more important. And so for distressing my cards, I use scissors and later a little bit of fingernails. So like that, I have a little bit more of the volume, and so it looks a little bit more distressed once again. And I glue everything together. I'm using my, how is it called? My Tacky glue. And yes, that's basically all there is to these cards. So I would like to take this moment to thank you so very much for all the comments you are leaving under my videos. As always, the full list of products you're gonna find in the description box under the video. If you want to check my stamps, stencils and rice papers, you can find them in my shop. I'm gonna give you a link also in the description box or in the pinned comment in this video. And thank you so very much for your support. It means so much to me, you have no idea. Also, for those of you who don't know my products, at the end of this video, after the close-up, I have a tiny short video with the rice papers I have now in my shop. Only the new collections, the old collections are still in the shop, but I didn't make video with them. And coming back to this project, I decided to cut a tiny bit the black edges, making the cards a little bit smaller than ATC, but by a few millimeters. It's not a big deal for me, but visually it's more appeasing to the eye, so, or pleasing to the eye, sorry guys. And so I just cut a tiny bit the edges, and here are the cards which are already done, and they look so grungy, so distressed, so nice. I absolutely love them. I hope you do as well. Guys, I'm sending you big hugs, and I hope I'm gonna see you soon in my next video. Bye bye.